Hey everyone, welcome to the Learning Network. You're with Kell Bell. This is a 10-part series that will take us through unlocking the secrets to the glossary of keywords in community and family studies. We're going to discover the secrets to success with each of these words. The first word that we're going to explore is identify. This training is for experienced CAFS teachers, newbie CAFS teachers, CAFS students, as well as teachers ready to take their CAFS crew to the very next level. You might like to show this to your students at a progressive level. You might like to revise this during exam time or possibly for an assessment task. This is available on demand, so students can also explore this for themselves. Once you build these key skills and understanding of the glossary of keywords with your students, you are going to see a huge improvement in their application to the glossary of keywords. Their results can possibly improve significantly just by being more explicit with these particular words. To ensure success, we're going to give copies of the glossary of keywords to students. We're going to be able to display them in our learning spaces if we're lucky enough to have our own learning space. Familiarising these with the students with them in the early years is also really important. I'm talking about even year 7. If we teach PDHPE in TAS, teaching these words from year 7 is going to make a huge difference with your students. And if you're lucky enough to teach in a K-12 school, you're going to be able to embed these all the way from the beginning. The biggest thing here, though, is teaching them explicitly to our students. We can't assume they know what they are, and being able to base all of our assessments on them is key here. Using a variety of glossary of keywords is important, and the biggest thing is having the students practice them in their work constantly. So we're going to be super explicit. We're going to be able to display these in our classrooms, model the use of words, show the students what it really takes, teaching them explicitly and getting them to apply and practice their understanding of these words. So let's dive into identify, which is kind of at the bottom or the lower end of the spectrum in relation to how difficult the glossary of keywords are. Typically, to be able to identify something is to be able to recognise what it is and name it. So students should be able to apply their understanding of this particular word in all assessment and examinations. So using words like namely, for instance, this can be identified as, and so on, to show the marker the students know what each of the words are. So using these keywords really demonstrates understanding of the glossary of keywords, and students should become familiar with using these words all the time. The typical mark range for identify might be something like 2 to 3 marks. It's quite lower order, so having the students apply their understanding with this word really explicitly is important, but also being able to practice what it looks like. In terms of structure, we're looking at 1 to 2 sentences, nothing really fancy or nothing that's over the top. Getting straight to the point is really important. Answering that question first, getting to the point straight away is key here. Let's have a look at some practice questions that might be identified in Year 11. So as we can see, a huge range of different questions from all of our cores. So the 3 cores here, we have questions like identify the aspects that impact on an individual's well-being. It could also include things like identify the roles individuals adopt within families. Notice here that there's not much exploration for content. They're simply identifying what it is, and in maybe a sentence or 2, they may be working on what that particular area is from the syllabus. With the identify glossary of keyword, we also might see it actually teamed up with another glossary of keyword. So for example, students might have to identify the aspects that impact an individual's well-being and discuss the implications of this on group interaction or something like that. So it might be actually having these 2 glossary of keywords come together when we have something like identify. We're going to see this in practice now. I'm going to introduce you to something called glue. Glue is my way of annotating responses, and it really brings all the parts together of what makes a really good response. So glue stands for the glossary of keyword, linked to the question, understanding, so syllabus understanding, as well as examples. So when we see the glossary of keyword identified and applied, we're going to highlight that in green. When it's a link back to the question or some sort of connective point to the question itself, or where the student has actually proved that this is part of the question, we're going to see that in pink. When they show syllabus knowledge and understanding, it's going to be in orange. And then examples to demonstrate their understanding of the content, bringing it all together, is going to be in yellow. So let's see it in practice. Here we have a question that might be based around Year 11 content. So identify the aspects that impact both positive and negative and an individual's well-being. We know well-being encompasses specs or speaks, and this particular question is worth 3 marks. Typically, a 3-mark question might be allocated to about 9 lines for an examination or an assessment task. So the typical rule of thumb for CAFS is for every mark worth, you'll be given 3 lines to work on. So just times it by that. Okay, let's look at our sample. So well-being is an interrelated concept where an individual is impacted by social, physical, emotional, economic, cultural, and spiritual factors. Okay, so you see that we have our syllabus understanding. We know that well-being is interrelated. We can show the marker that we know what the acronym is, or specs or speaks, that there's 6 main aspects of well-being. And we know it's talking about being impacted by it, because that's from the question itself. Okay, let's have a look at how we're going to apply our understanding of that glossary of keyword. You'll see here in green, we've been able to show namely. So namely, an individual may lead a healthy life physically. So here's our example, by eating good food and doing adequate exercise, which can also have an impact. This is that connective point on their emotional and social well-being. So the student has an understanding of the connections between emotional, physical, and social well-being. For instance, through having a strong mindset and by interacting positively, here's another example, with others, their overall well-being is impacted. Okay, you'll notice here that I haven't explored all of the glossary, all of the concepts in specs. We can't do that. Simply a 3-mark question wouldn't necessarily ask us to do that. We're just going to identify the key points and really hit the nail on the head of what this is in terms of our answer. So we haven't gone into too much. We've just provided a brief overview of this particular aspect. Let's have a look now at some Year 12 sample questions. So we would notice here that typically an identified question would just be from our cores. So research methodology, groups in context, and parenting and caring. And you'll notice that there's a vast number of different questions that we could have created for this particular glossary of keyword. So something like identify the types of data that can be used in research. And the kids would have to identify what they are and maybe how they come together. Identify the types of social parents. So FAST is our acronym there. Identify the responsibilities of parents and carers. So DSD, discipline, looking at setting limits and also duty of care. So just having a general overview of those particular areas is really what it takes to be able to identify something. So this is quite simply like a recall. The students are recalling key information about the syllabus content from the question itself. And you can get your students to create as many questions as they want based around these areas. And this is great practice. I want you guys to be able to show this to the students. Use these glossary of keywords and these questions and get the kids to apply their understanding. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I've covered, or if you'd like to connect further, please find me at thelearnnet.com, or you can head over to Facebook at The Learn Network, or also you'll find me on Instagram. I've also set up a private group for CAFS teachers, students. You guys have one too, and your CAFS teachers will tell you about that, but that particular group is just for CAFS teachers. And if you have any questions, or if you'd like me to delve a little bit deeper in this, please contact me at kelly@thelearnnet.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy this 10-part series.